Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to kick off today of Bryan's choice, looking at a track that has gone quite viral over the weekend. We have an artist named Oliver Anthony, wrote a song called Rich Men North of Richmond. Let's dive into this and see what he's bringing to the table today.
I've been selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours for bullshit pay, so I can sit out here and waste my life away, drag back home and drown my troubles away. It's a damn shame what the world's gotten to for people like me, people like you. Wish I could just wake up and it not be true, but it is. Oh, it is living in the new world with an whole soul. These rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just wanna have total control. Wanna know what you think, wanna know what you do, and they don't think you know, but I know that you do. 'Cause your dollar ain't shit, and it's taxed to no end. 'Cause the rich men north of Richmond. I wish politicians would look out for miners, and not just miners on an island somewhere. Lord, we got folks in the street, ain't got nothing to eat, and the obese milking welfare. Well, God, if you're 5'3" and you're 300 pounds, taxes ought not to pay for your bags of fudge rounds. Young men are putting themselves 6 feet in the ground, 'cause all this damn country does is keep on kicking them down. Lord, it's a damn shame what the world's gotten to for people like me, people like you. Wish I could just wake up and it not be true, but it is. Oh, it is living in the new world with an whole soul. These rich men know
Love those little flourishes on the guitar.
they all just wanna have total control. Wanna know what you think, wanna know what you do, and they don't think you know, but I know that you do. 'Cause your dollar ain't shit, and it's taxed to no end. 'Cause the rich men north of Richmond.
Really interesting reverb put on the vocals. Those little flourishes, man.
I've been selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours for bullshit pay.
Yeah, right there, you could clearly hear the reverb on the vocal track. It's interesting because when I pay attention to it, when I actually heard it, it almost feels overdone. But if you're not listening for it, it just makes the vocals sound perfect, which I think is what 99% of people are going to hear when they listen to this. It seems like it's the wrong choice, but if you know what you're doing, it's the right choice. But I think some of what I think is odd about it is the separation between the visuals and the audio, right? He's out in the middle of the woods. There's not a lot of things for his voice to be bouncing off of to create a reverb like that, so it feels a bit unnatural. But I think if I had listened to just the audio only on this, I don't think I would have thought it was out of place at all. But it just, especially when he gets to those powerful higher tones, just really belts it out, the reverb comes off real strong. But it absolutely works. Like, it's not a bad idea at all. And like I said, most people are not even going to hear it. So, what is this song doing now? That's what y'all come to the channel for. We break down the music. We have a 4 chord structure that we play over and over and over and over and over. The 4 chords themselves aren't really that important. They provide a little bit of the emotional aspect to the track. They paint the atmosphere, but really it's the vocals that are selling the emotion, both in the melody line itself and how its relationship to the chord progression, and the delivery, that raw angst that comes out in some of these lines. But what I do find really nice about this is that he doesn't decide to just sit on the 4 chords and say, that's it, I'm just going to play the 4 chords. He changes it up. Sometimes he'll do a full strum. Sometimes he'll strum each of the strings individually. Sometimes he'll do these nice little leading tones, picking a single note before moving into the chord. And sometimes he'll have these neat little flourishes, these series of 4/8 notes that act as leading notes into the next chord. And I didn't really seem to pick up a pattern of it. It's not like, each of the choruses had the same leading ideas into each chord. And honestly, I think some of the choruses were just straight chords. Even the strumming pattern, I think, shifted from time to time. What I'm getting at is this feels very live. It feels improvised in a sense. These are my 4 chords, and how I change between them, I will make up on the go. That's not necessarily what is going on here, but that's what it feels like. And it could, the opposite could be very true, where every single note is meticulously placed and he's fully memorized it all. And that's not to say also that there isn't a pattern. I just didn't pick one up on a first time listen. But the appearance to me is that he just wrote down 4 chords, and whatever his hands want to do transitioning between them, he allows them to do. And he has some really beautiful ideas in some of these transitions that embellish them, whether they're meticulously placed or improvised on the fly. A lot of them tend to embellish and support the emotions, both where we were at and where we're going, and what that series of chords translates to emotionally and atmospherically. It's just really smart, seemingly simple writing. And I think that's the best part about it. Um, because when we come to the other side of the equation, which is our melody, so our vocals, these are ridiculously simple. The music is really what drives it forward, and the micro variations is what drives a song forward, aside from what I'm going to assume is why most people are listening to this, what they're getting out of it, and why it's become a viral hit is the lyrics. You're listening to the story that's going on. But musically, the melody line is super simple. If I transposed the melody line to, say, trumpet, and I just play it, I think most people are going to walk out of my performance. It is not an interesting melody line, but it's not what we come here for. And so I think it's really smart to put the emotion into the melody, right? The melody isn't played on an instrument, it's played on the vocals, it's played on the vocal cords, it's sung, words get applied to it, and it embellishes and supports that melody line. But also, the chords that sit under it have interesting ideas going on in them that push the song forward as well. Everything is simple in one way or another, but the way that they work together is multiplicative. Everything is simple, but the song is more than the sum of its parts. Um, but the melody line is the same two beat idea over and over and over. And sometimes he switches it up, but he still finds a groove to sit within. And I think if you can, I don't know if everyone can do this, but if you can listen to the lyrics devoid of the words and just listen to the notes and the rhythms, I think you'll find something that is, again, kind of boring to listen to on its own. Um, and I think it's really interesting because I want to point this out specifically, primarily because while I think the lyrics are catchy, I don't think this song has a hook, or it does have a hook in the fact that the hook is usually a synonym for the chorus, but I don't think the chorus is catchy. I don't think the lyrics are catchy, the melody. And I think this is the underlying reason, is that there isn't really movement to the melody. It is, and it sits there, and it just cycles. But here's the cool thing. It is so thematically appropriate. I, I don't think I can stress this enough. The idea of just standing still with a mundane line that bears really nothing that would catch somebody's attention, and just the absolute, I don't want to call boredom of the melody, but just this static state, not really interesting, not changing, is exactly the uh, societal environment that he's singing about. The music perfectly showcases, or the melody perfectly showcases this exact phenomenon. It is not a great melody line musically, it is a fantastic melody line artistically because of the way it lines up with the theme. I think that pretty much wraps up my entire musical analysis here. There's not a lot going on. We have vocal with guitar accompaniment, and the accompaniment is quite accurate because the guitar is literally there to be a foundation for the vocals. They're not there to provide anything else, although, in an interesting twist, they do provide the momentum, as I mentioned earlier. So the last part, harmony, foundation, melody, lyrics. It's the only other thing in here, really. Other than production, I already kind of touched on why I thought that was interesting. So let me take a second to read these and we'll dig through that. Alright, so yeah, what I picked up and my understanding of the lyrics based on the few lines that I heard is pretty much what it's about. Um, he's out here talking about how the climate of existing right now sucks. Verse 1 says, I've been selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours for bullshit pay, so I can sit out here and waste my life away, drag back home and drown my troubles away. That, at least in America, the idea is you live for work. You wake up, you go to work, you come back, you have a few hours to yourself that you're completely drained of doing anything, and you start the cycle again. And it bleeds over into all sorts of other things about productivity in one's own life. And honestly, I mean, just the American concept of work is super unhealthy, especially compared to a lot of other places in the world, developed countries specifically, even. And we just have this hustle idea. You got to be on the grind 24/7, or you're somehow a drain on society. And I think that's exactly, he's selling his soul. It's not even just going to work every day. It's selling your soul to work every day. Um, he says it's a shame what the world's gotten to, specifically for people like me and people like you, us in the 99%. Things kind of suck. Later on, even says, you know, our money's not even worth anything anymore, so it's getting harder for us to make ends meet, and it's all because of the politicians, the rich men north of Richmond, which is just a really great pun. Later on, says young men are putting themselves 6 feet in the ground because this country keeps kicking them down. The idea of just making us work to death. Yeah, absolutely. Um, and if that were all that the song said lyrically, I think this would be the end of my analysis. I think the music works well. The music has that country dreariness to it. It's really working within the blues idea. He's got angst. He's got pessimism, and he's conducting that into his art. And I think it all comes together rather well. But I do have to mention that not everything is quite accurate in here, and we're going to get political for a second. More political than we already are. I'm already looking forward to the comments. Um, the idea that the 1%, regardless of country, the people in power are not looking after us, feels more accurate with each passing day. And it's always been accurate, right? But at least there's been an illusion of it previously, and that illusion is breaking down real quick. Especially, at least again for me in America. I can't speak for the whole world. I see these problems of inflation and rising prices, and weather skyrocketing and all sorts of stuff. This is affecting the whole world. But I don't know about the all of. I don't know that everything I'm about to say is extrapolatable outside of the U.S. Um, but yeah, the idea that we're just kind of working ourselves to the bone, and no one cares about us, especially not those in power, that is 100% right there. Um, Even says, the rich men north of Richmond, which I want to point out is probably referring to the politicians in Washington, D.C., which is just north of Richmond. Um, but I think it also applies not necessarily north of Richmond, but the rich men. The idea that there's a lot of rich men in this country is just the 1%, the people who own the majority of the wealth. They're the ones who put the laws into place, right? The politicians are the ones who enact it and solidify it, but the people with the money are the ones who write it, right? This whole idea. Basically, none of us 99% are being represented in this conversation, and it's screwing a lot of us over. However, there's a few lines in here where I really thought he was on point, where he says, it's us versus them. People like me and people like you are getting screwed over because of the elite. But then he falls into the trap of pointing the finger at his fellow, we'll just call it poor people, the 99%, those not in control. And this is 100% part of the fabrication that the elite want us to be in. They want us attacking each other so we don't form together and realize the power we have in numbers. He specifically calls out, he says, the obese people milking welfare. He says, if you're 300 pounds, my taxes shouldn't buy your fudge rounds. Are there people who do this? Sure. There's going to be a few people who abuse the system, but it's already been, we've had studies conducted into this. The vast amount of the people on U.S. welfare, including SNAP, food stamps, EBT, are people who need it. The idea that most of them are eating lobster and getting fudge rounds, I don't even know what that is. Fudge, is that like Swiss rolls? That's the closest thing I could think of. Anyways, the idea though, it's just there's no data to back it up. It is a falsehood to have us point fingers at each other instead of coming together. What was another line that he mentioned? Oh yeah, he says, I wish politicians would look out for minors and not just minors on an island somewhere. Specifically, I think referring to Epstein Island. Um, oh, you know what? I had this completely wrong. I was looking at this as an either or. Pick one of them, and you should pick us, right? You should pick our kids. But I think this is actually a stab at rich being pedophiles. Look out for minors, but don't just look for the minors on an island somewhere, right? I think that's what it is. Okay, so I don't have as much of a gripe with that specific line. Wait, was that it? I feel like I had more critiques, but it's really just the welfare one. Yeah, so that's it. I wish that line weren't in the track, but otherwise, I think this dude is speaking straight facts. That's probably outdated now too, isn't it? Nobody says that anymore. Um, so yeah, excellent track. Um, Coming right from the soul. Nice little flourishes in it to bring it up a bit above your typical folk or singer-songwriter vocal and instrument idea. And, just bringing some ideas to light that maybe people aren't aware of. Those are my thoughts on Oliver Anthony's Rich Men North of Richmond. Let me know yours. Give me your opinions, perspectives, thoughts, whatever, down in the comment section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It's going to take you to this menu right here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. Alright, we got one more coming up today. Otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow. We're going to check out some requests from the comments. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.